7 days, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 churches. At first glance, it feels like coincidence, just a number appearing here and there, like any other number might. But the more you look, the more unsettling it becomes. Because the number 7 doesn't just appear occasionally in the Bible, it repeats relentlessly. It shows up at the beginning of the story, in the middle of it, and again at the very end. It appears in moments of peace and in moments of chaos, in creation and in destruction, in blessing and in judgment. And that raises a question that most people never stop to ask. Why this number? Why does it keep appearing in places that seem too important to ignore? From the opening lines of the book of Genesis to the symbolic visions of the book of Revelation, the number 7 is woven into the structure of the narrative itself. Not randomly, not occasionally, but consistently. And consistency suggests intention. But intention from who? Was this pattern deliberately placed by the authors as a literary or symbolic device? Or does it point to something deeper, something that goes beyond human design? Because here's where it gets even more intriguing. This pattern doesn't just exist in isolated verses. It spans entire systems, time, ritual, prophecy, and even cosmic imagery. It's almost as if the number 7 isn't just part of the story. It's part of the framework of the story itself. But before we can understand what it means, or whether it means anything at all, we need to go back to the very beginning. Because the first time the number 7 appears, it doesn't just introduce a number, it introduces a pattern. And once that pattern begins, it never really stops. The first appearance of the number 7 isn't hidden. It's not subtle. It doesn't require deep analysis to find. It's right at the start. In the book of Genesis, the story of creation unfolds in a structured sequence, one that has shaped not only religious thought, but the very way humans understand time itself. Day 1, night separates from darkness. Day 2, the sky is formed. Day 3, land and vegetation appear. Day 4, the sun, moon, and stars are set in place. Day 5, living creatures fill the waters and skies. Day 6, animals and humanity emerge. 6 stages, 6 movements of creation, and then everything changes. On the 7th day, there is no new creation, no new action, no expansion. Instead, there is rest. But this rest is often misunderstood. It's not the rest of exhaustion, as if the Creator needed to recover. It's something far more intentional. It is the rest of completion. The work is finished. The process has reached its full expression. Nothing more needs to be added. And that's where the number 7 takes on its first and most important meaning: completion. But not just any completion, complete order. A finished system, a balanced structure where everything is exactly as it should be. And this idea becomes foundational. Because from this point forward, the number 7 doesn't just mark time, it defines a pattern, a rhythm. 6 stages of action, followed by 1 stage of completion, a cycle. And cycles in ancient thought weren't just practical, they were symbolic. They represented harmony, order, and meaning. But here's where things begin to shift. If 7 represents completion, why does it continue to appear in moments that are anything but peaceful? Why does it show up in stories of destruction, judgment, and chaos? Unless completion doesn't always mean something good. Sometimes completion means the end of something, no matter what that something is. And that idea becomes much harder to ignore as the story continues. To understand why the number 7 appears so often, we need to understand something important about the ancient world. People didn't use numbers the way we do today. Today, numbers are mostly practical. We use them to count, measure, and calculate. But in ancient cultures, including the culture in which the Bible was written, numbers often carried symbolic meaning. They were not just quantities, they were ideas. For example, certain numbers were associated with concepts like unity, strength, or completeness. And among all these numbers, 7 stood out as one of the most meaningful. But why? One reason is observation. Ancient people looked at the world around them and tried to understand patterns. One of the most obvious patterns they saw was in the sky. There were 7 visible celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and 5 planets visible to the naked eye. To them, this wasn't random. It suggested structure, order, a kind of completeness in the universe. Over time, this idea became deeply rooted in culture. The number 7 began to represent a full cycle, something that is complete and lacking nothing. So when we see the number 7 in the Bible, it's important to realize that the writers were not just giving us numbers, they were communicating meaning. For instance, when a passage repeats something 7 times, it may not be about counting exactly 7 events. It may be emphasizing that something is fully complete or perfectly established. This changes how we read the text. Instead of asking only how many, we also ask, what is this number trying to communicate? But here's where it becomes more interesting and a little more complicated. If numbers are symbolic, then not every use of 7 should be taken literally. And that raises an important question. When the Bible uses the number 7, is it describing actual events or expressing deeper meaning through symbolism? The answer isn't always simple, and that's why as we move forward, we need to pay attention not just to where 7 appears, but how it is being used. Because the meaning of 7 becomes even clearer when we see how it shapes real-life practices in the Bible. The number 7 is not only found in stories, it is built into the daily life of the people described in the Bible. One of the clearest examples is the Sabbath. According to the book of Genesis, God rested on the 7th day. Later, this pattern becomes a command for people to follow. Every 7th day is set apart as a day of rest. This is not just a suggestion, it becomes part of religious law. People are instructed to stop working, reflect, and observe this day as holy. This weekly cycle becomes a rhythm of life, 6 days of work followed by 1 day of rest. But the pattern does not stop at days. In the book of Leviticus, the number 7 is used to structure entire years. Every 7th year is called a Sabbath year, a time when the land itself is allowed to rest. Farmers do not plant or harvest in the usual way. The land is given time to recover. Then something even more remarkable happens. After 7 cycles of 7 years, that is, 49 years, the next year becomes a special year known as the Year of Jubilee. During this time, debts are forgiven. Slaves are freed. Land is returned to original families. This is a complete reset of society. And once again, the number 7 is at the center of it. So what does this tell us? It shows that 7 is not just symbolic, it is also structural. It organizes time, it shapes behavior, it defines systems of rest, fairness, and renewal. But this leads to an important observation. If the number 7 represents rest, balance, and restoration, then why does it also appear in some of the most intense and destructive parts of the Bible? Why is the same number used in both peace and judgment? To answer that, we need to look at one of the most symbolic books in the Bible, and that's where the meaning of 7 becomes even more powerful. When we come to the book of Revelation, the number 7 appears more frequently and more dramatically than almost anywhere else. This book is filled with vivid imagery and symbolic language, and 7 plays a central role in how the events are described. We see 7 churches, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. Each group of 7 represents a sequence of events. For example, the 7 seals are opened one after another, and each seal reveals something new, often something troubling or destructive. The same pattern continues with the trumpets and the bowls. This creates a sense of progression. Things are moving forward step by step, building toward a final outcome. And here is where the meaning of 7 becomes clearer. In this context, 7 represents completion, but not necessarily in a peaceful sense. Instead, it represents the completion of a process, especially a process of judgment. In other words, when the 7th event happens, the sequence is finished. Nothing more is added. This shows us that 7 is not limited to positive ideas like rest and perfection. It can also represent the completion of consequences. This is an important point, because it means the number 7 is not about whether something is good or bad. It is about whether something is complete. Once the 7th step is reached, the process is finished. This helps explain why the same number can appear in both creation and destruction. In both cases, something is being brought to its full conclusion. But this raises another question. Why was the number 7 chosen to represent completion in the first place? To answer that, we need to look beyond the Bible and consider the broader world in which these ideas developed. The Bible did not develop in isolation. It was written in a world where people were already observing patterns and assigning meaning to them. One of the most important influences was the sky. Ancient people carefully watched the movement of celestial bodies. Without modern technology, the night sky was one of their primary sources of understanding the world. They identified 7 major moving objects: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These were the only wandering stars visible without instruments. Because there were 7 of them, the number 7 became associated with the structure of the cosmos. This likely influenced how time was divided. The 7-day week, which we still use today, reflects this pattern. So when biblical writers used the number 7, they were not introducing something completely new. They were using a number that already carried deep meaning in their culture. This does not reduce its importance. In fact, it helps us understand it better. It shows that the number 7 functioned as a shared language, a way of expressing ideas that people already recognized. So when readers saw the number 7, they would immediately associate it with completeness, order, and structure. But this leads to a key question. If the meaning of 7 was already known in the culture, was the Bible using that meaning to communicate its message? Or was it reinforcing and shaping that meaning further? The answer may be a combination of both, and understanding that helps us read the text more accurately. At this point, we need to address an important issue. When the Bible uses the number 7, should we always take it literally? The answer is not always. Some passages may be describing actual counts. For example, a reference to 7 days can simply mean a week. But in many cases, especially in poetic or prophetic texts, the number is used symbolically. This is particularly true in books like Book of Revelation, where imagery and symbolism are used extensively. In these cases, the number 7 may represent completeness rather than an exact quantity. For example, when we read about 7 churches, it may refer to specific historical communities, but it can also symbolize the completeness of the church as a whole. Understanding this helps us avoid confusion. If we treat every number as strictly literal, we may miss the deeper meaning. On the other hand, if we treat everything as symbolic, we risk ignoring the historical context. So the key is balance. We need to look at the type of writing, historical, poetic, prophetic, the context of the passage, how the number is being used. This allows us to interpret the text more carefully, and it reminds us that the Bible communicates in multiple layers. Some parts are straightforward, others require reflection, and the number 7 often belongs to that second category. Humans are naturally drawn to patterns. We look for repetition, structure, and meaning in the world around us. This is part of how we understand reality. When we see something repeated, like the number 7, we begin to ask why. This curiosity drives interpretation. It helps us connect ideas and form conclusions, but it also comes with a challenge. Sometimes we may see patterns that are not intentionally there. So when we notice the number 7 repeatedly, we have to ask, is this pattern meaningful by design, or is it meaningful because we interpret it that way? In the case of the Bible, there is strong evidence that the use of 7 is intentional. The consistency is too strong to ignore, but our interpretation of its meaning can still vary. This is why it is important to approach the text carefully. We should recognize patterns, but also seek to understand them in context. Understanding the role of the number 7 changes how we read the Bible. Instead of focusing only on events, we begin to notice structure. We see how ideas are organized and repeated. This helps us read more thoughtfully. We start asking deeper questions. Why is this number used here? What idea is it expressing? How does it connect to other parts of the text? This approach does not replace traditional reading. It adds to it. It allows us to see both the surface meaning and the underlying design. And in many cases, that design helps reinforce the message. So what does the number 7 really mean? From everything we've seen, one idea stands out clearly. It represents completion. Whether in creation, law, or prophecy, the number 7 marks the end of a process. It signals that something has reached its full form. But beyond that, it also reflects how people understand the world. It shows how meaning can be expressed through structure and repetition, and it reminds us that the Bible is not just a collection of stories, it is a carefully constructed text where even numbers can carry significance. The next time you see the number 7 in the Bible, you may not see it the same way again, because now it's no longer just a number. It's a signal, a pattern, a reminder that there may be more beneath the surface than we first realize. As we come to the end of this journey, take a quiet moment and think about what we've uncovered together. A single number, repeated across creation, prophecy, worship, and time itself. A pattern so deeply woven into Scripture that it almost feels like a whisper beneath the surface, reminding us that there is order where we often see chaos, meaning where we often see randomness. And maybe that's part of the mystery, that even in a world filled with uncertainty, God speaks through patterns, through symbols, through moments we might otherwise overlook. So if you've been searching for clarity, for peace, or simply for reassurance that your life is not unfolding without purpose, remember this. The same God who set order into creation still sees you, still guides you, still walks beside you, even in seasons that feel confusing or incomplete. And I pray that your heart finds rest in that truth. May God surround you with wisdom when your mind feels uncertain, peace when fear grows loud, and quiet strength when the path ahead feels unclear. May His presence remain with you in the unseen moments, and may you never forget that you are held by something greater than yourself. As it is written in book of Isaiah 41:10, "Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness." And in book of Psalms 91:11, "For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways." Thank you for being here with me. And until next time, keep looking deeper. Thanks for watching. If this opened your eyes even a little, don't let it end here. Tap subscribe, Leave a like and share with someone who needs it. I will love to hear your thought. Drop a comment below.